Oh, hi, everyone. Um, Good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are. Thank you all for attending this webinar. I see we have a good number. We can proceed. So thank you so much for attending this scholar reporting call. And this call is specified for student scholars to enhance our reporting practices to WMI. And it is a very important activity as it enables WMI to keep track of your academic progress and also keep track of your involvement in the community, as well as a well-done report means that you'll receive your wire timely, while a poor report will delay the transfer of your funds. So our main objective is to go over all the reporting requirements for WMI and then get feedback from you on the challenges you've experienced during reporting your activities. And on the call, we have our able staff. We have Elizabeth Murimi, who is our education manager. And we also have Liz Josiah, who is a scholar programs assistant. And then we have Rachel Haddad, who is the development and communications manager. So at this point, I'll call on to Liz to take over. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you, Joyce, and thank you, scholars, for joining us today. So we are going to go through some of the issues that we normally come across when we are doing the scholar reporting. So the idea is that we want to be sending your wires on time immediately that you send in your report. You don't want to have a back and forth. So that's why we have called this meeting today, so that at least we can be in agreement on how we should do our reporting. And most importantly, if we do the reporting well, that means we will be able to get our wires on time, and we don't have to struggle and have issues with our schools because we are late in having our wires in and all that. So Liz, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right, so we'll just go through a few highlights of the academic report, and Rachel will be handling it's called the community service report. So some of the highlights and some of the most important things that we see that make us get delayed in getting our funding is the official grade report. So the official grade report from your university should be the current one or a letter of good standing. And what we normally find is that a scholar will send a letter of good standing this time. So this time we have the July reporting, and then we find that this is the same letter of good standing that you sent us in January, the January reporting. So what we are saying is that the letter of good standing must be current. If you send a letter of good standing, the next reporting, we require you to have your transcript. If you still do not have your transcript, please make sure you get another letter of good standing. Why we insist on the current letter, why we insist on your transcript, is because it shows us that you're still in school. So if you're giving us a letter that you gave us last semester, it cannot tell us whether or not you're still in school. So that is why you find us insisting that you give us a current letter of good standing, not the one that you used last time. So if you do that in good time, so if at all right now you're here in this meeting, you know very well your transcript is still not ready. If you are planning to use the letter of good standing from January, please get a new one. Please get a current one so that we don't have a back and forth and delay your wiring. So the official university calendar, please send us the most recent. Do not send us maybe one for last year. It has to show, you see now we are sending you the July wire or the September wire. It has to show that you're in school September, October, November. Don't give us one that ended in June, because now we are not able to know what happened from June, July, August 2025. Give us one that goes beyond the wire that you're going to get, the September wire. Now, the school ledger. This is very, very important as it shows your fee balance with the school. And then especially for those who are finishing, it's able to give us an indicator of how much we should send to your school so that we avoid overpayment. We have had situations where the school does not give us the ledger. And then when we pay to the school, we find there was an overpayment, and yet this is funds that we could have used for another scholar. So if the ledger is not available, you're supposed to get a letter from the finance office explaining that they do not provide ledgers. So normally what happens, many of you who do not have ledgers, you normally write to us yourselves. And then now we have a back and forth. But if the letter was official from school, it would be helpful to show us that you do not get ledgers. And then for the letter that you get now from school, do not put a wrong document in the ledger. The ledger is supposed to be the ledger, or a letter from your finance department telling us that they do not give ledgers. And there are those who actually, when you go to the finance office, they do not give ledgers. They'll explain to us and they might actually give us the balance in that letter. So it's very helpful for you to go to the finance office and get the help that you can get, rather than writing to us yourself, and then now we have a back and forth, or we end up having an overpayment on your account, which is money that we could have used for another scholar. So the next point is concerning the scholar expense tracker. I think now this is where the crux of the matter is. And this is where we find that most of us have delayed wiring. So the scholar expense tracker should have all the expenses incurred in the period. So your last wire, we sent your wire in February or in March. So between February and now, all your expenses should be in the expense tracker. Now we have the issue of the bank charges. So if you have bank charges, some of the bank charges are a bit significant, or even though it's small, it doesn't matter. Take a screenshot of this amount and then upload it with the receipts, and then include this bank charge in your expense tracker. What we are trying to achieve with your expense tracker is that your expense tracker should equal the amount that we sent to you in the wire. So as I've said, the total amount in the expense tracker should be the total amount of funds that we send to you. So when there is a disparity, now that is where now we always get a back and forth. So another issue now with the expense tracker is that it should also tally with the receipts submitted. So when you submit your receipts, so it's the receipts plus the bank charges. So the total amount should be the amount that we sent you in February. So we will not send your next wire if the amount in the tracker, your receipts, and the amount sent in the last wire do not tally. So the three should actually come together. So what normally happens is that the amount in the tracker does not go with the receipts, and it's also not the amount that we sent in the last wire. So maybe the receipts are a bit less, and then in the expense tracker, the amount is also different. So that is where we normally have a back and forth with the scholars. And then another issue is that some of our receipts, they normally rub off. Some of the inking is not very good quality. So what we are saying is that immediately you use funds, and then you get a receipt. Please take a photo of that receipt and save it. Do not keep your receipts and then you wait for July, and then you go take those receipts, and then some of them are not even legible. So many of you send us receipts that are not legible. When we get to you, you tell us, oh, that is 4,200, which cannot actually be seen. So please keep once you do your expense, take a photo, save your receipts. So basically, good reporting starts immediately you start using your funds. If you wait till July, it becomes problematic. Sometimes you might find maybe your roommate has taken those receipts, they have thrown them away. They don't understand that you'll use those receipts for your reporting. So make sure, take your photos, save them. It makes life much, much easier. Now, there's this other issue that has come up, and many scholars have brought it up, that we have vendors that do not provide receipts. We have the transporters, we have in Kenya, we call them boda riders, the taxi driver. There are those who do not just give receipts at all. And possibly for our transport, it is a daily thing. We go to the market every day, we do our groceries every day, and they don't have receipts. So what we have come up with is a letter of confirmation of expenses. So this is a letter, just like the letter of good standing that you're supposed to get from your department. So this letter of confirmation of expenses, it must be printed on university letterhead. It should include your full name and ID number. It should state your current academic semester. So for instance, since the expense was between January and June 2025 or July 2025, it should indicate that time where the expense was done. So this is what I'm trying to say, this example here. And then it should state the expense and amount for each expense in local currency. And then you're supposed to tabulate the total expenses in local currency. It should also be ink signed and stamped by a university official and the contact of that university official. What we are trying to do is that you will do a list of your expenses, take them to your department head or your finance officer, have them sign and stamp. It is telling us that this is an actual reflection of what scholar expenses might look like in the absence of receipts. So we are saying this is not a replacement of receipts. So the expenses where you have your receipts, upload them. The ones that don't have a receipt, these are the ones that you will use the letter of confirmation of expenses. So what I'll do, I'll give you an example of a letter of expenses, how it looks like. Very simple and straightforward. Let me just share that with you right now. Just a second. Yeah, so this is it. I don't know if you can see it clearly. Let me add the...
Maybe just expand it, make it larger, because now it's much better.
better.
Yes.
Yes. So as we are saying, it should be on the university letterhead to the, and so we are going to share this template, the education manager. This is your name, and then we'll say possibly here we would rather put we'll change this to June, maybe January 2025 to June 2025, because academic session, sometimes it gives us confusion. There are people who are in 2025 and the academic session is 2023, 2024. So this one, we will change it to reflect the exact time where the expenses were incurred. So you do your faculty dues, and then you tell us how much, if it's transport, if it's your groceries, if it's your food, everything, put it here. And then you see like the feeding cost is here, 800 shillings per day and all that. And then give us the total. And then this is the person who is going to sign on your behalf, the head of department, or is it the finance officer? And then they'll also give us their contact, so that in case we feel that it doesn't make sense, or we need to confirm from them anything, then we can always get in touch. So this confirms your expenses. So we're not going to have a situation where your scholar expense tracker is not, we don't want that excuse that your scholar expense tracker is not adding up to the funds that we sent you. Everything should align. Your receipts, your letter of confirmation of expenses, and then the funds that we sent you. Once you have that in place, once you have your ledger in place or your letter, once you have your letter of good standing or your transcript, let me tell you, we will send your funds in good time and you can do your studies without any issues. So I think I'm done for now. Back to you, Joyce.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that insight. Just maybe to add on to it, most of especially the supermarket receipts, the printing always fades off after some time. In addition to taking a photo, you can make a photocopy of it immediately. You've done your transaction and you'll definitely have this copy even 10 years to come. Yes, our next speaker is Rachel. Yeah, Rachel, please go ahead.
Thank you, Joyce. And thank you for all of that good information, Elizabeth. Yes, as Joyce said, I am Rachel Haddad. I'm the Development and Communications Manager with WMI, and I'm just going to be sharing a bit more about the community service report. Basically, why it matters, what we do with it, how best to document your hours, community service hours, and then just some tips that will be revisiting information that I shared with, I'm sure, many of you last year about taking good photos, because the photos are so very important. So firstly, just sort of broadly, so everyone has a better understanding of why the community service report matters and how it's used. I'm sure that all of you, most of you, know that WMI is a nonprofit organization, which means that our work is made possible through donors, through the generosity of our many donors and our audience. So the vast majority of those donors live somewhere else. They're in the United States or some sort of comparable place. So your service reports are so important because they really serve as that window for our supporters into who you are and what it is that you're doing, the work that you are making possible, your educational journey, and the impact that you're having in your community, in your nation, and so on. At WMI, we exist to support you, our scholars, and really to be telling your story. And so the better we can convey who you are and what you're doing, the more connected others can feel to that work. So it's extremely important. In fact, I was thinking about it earlier and I thought to myself, I think the community service report is the most important bit of documents that I receive as a communications professional, because without that information coming straight from you, here's what we're doing. This is the impact of this support, that I really couldn't do my job. And those service reports are used throughout the year in ample ways, So yeah, I just really appreciate all of the work and hard work that I know many of you put into them, because it's lengthy. And please know that that's not all for naught. There's a lot of purpose to that, and it's used to a really productive end. So just a couple little logistical bits that seem important to point out. So documenting volunteer hours. One aspect of the report, as you all know, is the documentation of your volunteer hours. We have become aware of just some confusion on how best to document those hours and which hours, count toward the requirement each semester. So just to provide some clarity, hours spent planning for a service activity, for some sort of volunteerism, should be counted. For instance, let's say you are coordinating a beach cleanup, right, for your community, and you spent 20 hours like recruiting volunteers and creating a plan and purchasing garbage bags, training volunteers and all of these things that you do, to facilitate a community service day. Those hours certainly can and should be counted towards your total. Hours spent at an internship actually should not be counted toward your 100 hours. We often will see numbers that come in that are like gigantic, like a gigantic number of hours that are thousands of hours that are being committed to community service. And if you're doing thousands of hours of community service, wow, incredible, you're doing it, that's great. But we kind of assume that some of what's happening there is that scholars are lumping their internship hours in with volunteer hours. So it helps us if you separate those out and allow internship hours to be what they are, which is like a requirement for your academic studies, and then community service hours to be something different. This even will help us in our reporting, our, you know, the way that we understand the data that comes in. So yeah, would appreciate that discernment. And then finally, I'm going to go through this quickly because this is all information that I already shared with scholars last year. I'm sure many of you. But again, it just cannot be overstated how important your pictures are. The pictures that you take, as I'm sure many of you have seen, I'm sure you've commented on pictures on social media and in the impact report and all of the places. This really is the heart of what we share. And there's this saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and all of these things. And it really is true. You can say so much with just a really well done, meaningful picture. So I'm just going to go through these very quickly to help you in taking those photos, to make sure you're taking photos that are usable, that are telling the story. There is nothing sadder to me as a communications person than when there's a really good story and the pictures you can tell are so close to being good, but they're not usable for certain reasons. And I think, no, I really wanted to use those. So here are just a review of a few of those tips. So firstly, people like to look at people. I'm sure that I shared that in 2024. So like faces are a good thing. So capture people in your service photos when possible. Eye contact is nice. It's not necessary, but again, we're relational creatures and we like to look at other people. So the subject, probably pretty obvious, but just be aware in your photo of what you want the viewer to be looking at. You know, like the top photo is probably really wonderful and what they're doing is excellent, but you just cannot see exactly what's going on. And because there isn't a focus on a person, an activity, a place, something like this, it doesn't catch you right as much as the bottom. This is the same service activity, but the bottom photo is just more dynamic. And so being conscious of that, what is the subject of the photo, and sort of zeroing in on that piece can be helpful. Lighting, oh my goodness, lighting is a make or break. And this is so funny because in 2024, I was sitting in the same place with the same lighting issue. So please don't make my mistakes. This back here is a photographic mistake. So that's because the light is behind me, the subject, which means it's in front of the camera, right? So lighting and behind the camera, ideal, right? Outside lighting, also ideal. Obviously, sometimes you have to take pictures indoors. Of course, makes sense. But as much lighting as you can bring in this way through the camera, maybe through a window, through a door, is just going to brighten up that picture so much and make it nicer and easier to see. And kind of obvious, but take more than one photo. All three of these photos are basically taken within the span of like, you know, 5 minutes, but they increasingly get better. So sometimes if the subjects are okay with it, if they're comfortable with multiple photos, they just can be better if you take, you know, 3, 5, 10, however many are comfortable. And then, of course, very importantly, consider the ethics of any of the photos that you're taking. When possible, receive verbal permission from those who are being photographed, or at least be creating a space where they understand the pictures will be taken. And in the case of any photo, ask yourself, would I be happy to be portrayed this way? Sometimes we have scholars who are medical scholars who will submit photos of people in surgery, like they're in the surgery. And I totally understand what you're trying to accomplish in showing the impact of what you're doing, but we're probably never going to show those pictures. And I'm not quite sure that people would care for those pictures to be taken, you know, so just kind of thinking through some of those elements. You know, we're really trying to convey that we're there as a support and that we're providing hope through you as these young and capable leaders. So that's what I have. If you have any questions on any of these issues or logistics, or if a photo is a good photo or not, I'm happy to, to support you in that. Just shoot me an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that information. There's so many questions for you guys, but you'll respond at the end of this session. So next up, we have Liz Josiah, who will take us through the next phase of this webinar. Welcome, Liz.
Okay. Thank you, Joyce and Rachel, for that informative session. So I'll quickly share updates with us. So the July reporting will begin on 1st July. So that is when we will send you the academic and the community service reports. And then the deadline for submission will be August 30th. So that is 2 months. So kindly take advantage of that. Ensure that if you have any question, any concern, if you're not sure about anything, you can quickly reach out to the RCs, and you know who our RCs is, including Joyce. So you reach out to them, or even you write to scholars. So also ensure that you do a comprehensive work when it comes to reporting. You ensure that everything that has been shared by Rachel and Elizabeth, you put it into practice and ensure that you do a comprehensive reporting. And then the wiring as usual will begin 1st September, and then the end of wiring will be October 30th. So if you delay in sending in your reports, it means your wire will also delay. And we also, because we have timelines in our work also, we want to ensure that by October 30th, we are done with sending wires for all student scholars. So kindly ensure that you report on time, not unless you have a critical issue, which you can share with Elizabeth through writing at scholars' email. So I think that's it for me. But I want to reiterate that in case you have any issue that restricts you from writing a comprehensive report, reach out to Elizabeth or to the RCs. We are here to support and to help you. Yeah, back to you, Joyce.
Thank you so much, Liz. Now we'll head over to the questions section. So please use the Q&A section to type in your questions, and then I'll read them out to our presenters. So this question goes out to you, Elizabeth. Daniel is asking, I want to know if I have all receipts intact, corresponding with the amounts wired to you. Does one still need to get the letter of confirmation?
All right, Daniel, no, please no. If you have your receipts and they're adding up, please don't send the letter of confirmation. This is for those ones who normally write in and say, I don't have receipts. It's for food, it's for transport. So those are the ones who are getting the letter. But as long as you have your receipts, even for transport and food, you don't need the letter. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz. This one goes to Rachel, and this one is coming from Usanga. He's asking, or she's asking, must we always be in the photos? What if the photos show only the impact?
Yep. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Usanga. I did answer in the chat, but for anyone that did not see, no, you definitely do not have to be in the photos. Photos that are displaying impact are perfect, and we use those all the time. I would say that it would be nice for the entire report if there were maybe a couple photos that you submitted of yourself, because we do like to feature you as kind of our people, you know, our leaders. But no, you don't have to be in all the photos.
Okay, maybe you can also respond. You've responded to Francia, but I believe it will also be beneficial to everyone. The question is, what if the community service you're doing involves children and you're not allowed to take photos?
Yeah, that's a great question. definitely don't. You know, if you have been explicitly asked not to take photos, or if you're aware, you know, I used to work for an organization that worked within orphanages. And so you can't take those photos. I mean, oftentimes it's like illegal. And so what we did a lot was just had to use stock photos, because you just cannot, you know, push through these requests or these legal statutes that exist, right? So if you are doing work with populations that you cannot, or even feel that you should not photograph, just don't, you know. And if it happens that the vast majority of your work has been done with those individuals, and you come to the end of the semester and think, I don't have very many photos because I was engaging with these populations, just send, you know, Liz, Elizabeth's, me, somebody, an email to kind of detail that, or detail it in your within your report that those are the parameters of what you were able to photograph.
Thank you, Rachel. Just to add on to that, we have data protection guidelines where people need to be to consent to be taken a photo, because you might not know what the photo may be used for. We've had instances where people, there's a school here in Kenya which used the students' photos to advertise their school, but the parents used that photo against them, and they were charged with at least 4.5 million Kenya shillings bill as a fine for that. So maybe just seek consent before you take any photos, and maybe if they can sign somewhere that they consented freely. You can also tell them the purpose of you taking the photos for WMI purposes. And if you need to have it in writing, please do so that we may not be held in a position where you don't want to. So another question here, it's going to Elizabeth. What about for expenses that are not charged in local currency but in US dollar only? I think the question is, how do you document for expenses done in US dollars?
Okay, because now the receipt will be in US dollars. You will upload that receipt in US dollars. So depending, because you have your Scholar Tracker, and so I'm believing most of your other expenses will be in local currency. So for these particular expenses that are in US dollars, first of all, you will upload the receipts that are in US dollars, and then you can convert into the local currency so that it aligns with your other expenses, so that we have your total. So it should not be a problem. Or if all your expenses are in US dollars, also not a problem. You can just do it and give a total in US dollars. But we normally say local currency because we know most of your receipts are in local currency, but not a problem. If they're in dollars, just upload them as they are. But whatever is if the majority are in local currency, then convert those specific costs into local currency. Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Now back to you, Rachel. Darasimi is asking, he would like to know if the 100 hours of community service is for a year or a semester. And just a follow-up question on that is, should internship hours be included as community service hours?
I believe the 100 hours is per semester, but I feel like I get this wrong a lot. Is that right? Okay, 100 hours per semester is the obligation, expectation. Obviously, you can do more than 100 hours, but one thing that I did kind of want to touch on, and then I didn't in my presentation, is please know that hours past 100 hours are wonderful, and obviously that's feeding into your community service, but we only require 100. So you won't be like penalized if you do 100, 105, 110. You don't have to do 400 hours of community service to be to like look good, right, to WMI, the 100 hours is our expectation, and that's where it ends. Of course, we always would encourage that you be participatory in your community and do as much as you can, but we also know your students, you, I'm sure, are studying quite a lot and engaged in other activities. So please know that it's just that 100 hours that we expect of you. Was there another question, Joyce?
Yes. Should internship hours be counted as community
Gotcha.
service hours?
Gotcha. We think no. It seems like a different pool of it seems like you're doing different things. Even though for your internship, surely you are doing something that is service oriented within the community that you're in. That really feels like an academic requirement. You know, this is part of what is necessary for you to move forward within your academics and within your field of study. And what we're looking for is separate community service that is not internship related.
Thank you, Rachel. And Liz has been quiet for a while. Let me just jog her mind here. There's a question here from Julius. He's begging a repetition on the timelines for wiring funds this time. Timelines for reporting.
Okay. So the July reporting for the community service and academic service opens on 1st of July. And then the deadline is August 30th. So that is the timeline. So please try as much as possible to submit your reports between 1st July to August 30th. Yes.
Thank you, Rachel. So there's so many questions about community service since it has the most weight here. Rachel, back to you. So Nan is asking, is it okay to count self-organized activities such as online reading club or language class for migrant workers as community service hours?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, we assume, yeah, definitely. We assume that that for some people, a number of your service hours will go towards self-organized activities because you all are leaders, you know, and you are looking around your area and figuring out what is needed. And so, sure, you know, if that's something that feels legitimate, like legitimate volunteer, obviously it goes on a case-by-case basis, and we would ask you to kind of look internally and decide if, you know, there's a difference between helping out a flatmate with their homework and like doing community service. But yeah, if this is something that is organized and there's a plan and there are goals set in place, then absolutely that would count.
Okay, another follow-up questions. For the organizations that do not allow you to take photos and those ones that you say they're impact photos, do you, then the scholar is not in those photos, should you still count for those hours? Are they valid?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And I think even, you know, it's possible to get creative with some of this stuff. You know, like there are many scholars who will submit pictures, and let's say it's outside of some educational institution, maybe it's outside of an orphanage, it's outside of some space that maybe it would be more delicate to take photos of those individuals, and maybe they have a photo taken of themselves outside of the building, and you see the building and you understand that there's some sort of work that is being done there. I think there are ways to creatively get around some of those limitations. But again, if that's not possible, if the rules around the place you're volunteering are very strict, which I totally understand, then first and foremost, we want you to be respectful of those requirements. And yeah, we'll find a way to make it work. You shouldn't worry about that.
Thank you. So to Elizabeth, questions about the ledger. Gadwell and Esther are asking if the ledger, self-printed ledger from the students' portal are valid.
Yes, definitely. Those ones are valid. So we are the ones who are getting the letter of good start. No, the letter from the school there's no ledger whatsoever. From the portal, from the office, there's nothing that they are able to present to us. So the one that you print from the portal is okay, because I think it shows the expenses, like what you have paid and then the balance. And that's exactly what we need. So that one is okay. We don't have a problem. Just upload that one. Yeah.
Okay. There's an anonymous attendee who's asking if this community service hours changed from 100 per year to 100 per semester. Rachel has already responded to that. It is 100 hours per semester.
No, sorry. Yeah, it's
100
a
hour
pie.
per year.
Yeah, so I think maybe it's because some of us have a semester per year, some have 2 semesters per year, some have even 3. So it's per year. So even though you have a trimester, yeah. So we're supposed to count, like in your January reporting, your July reporting, we want the total to be 100. So it is per year, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. I actually didn't know that. I get it wrong a
Oh.
lot.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Back to you, Rachel. If a final year student, this is Zikaria, I'm a final year student and I'm the group leader of our 2 projects, both design and research projects, coordinating the members of the 2 groups. Could I count them as community service?
Well, in theory, yes. I'd be curious to know what the nature of the project is. If it is, if it's something that is obviously serving individuals in your region, I think like okay, that's possible. I think that I would have to understand better what the expectation was. It sounds like this is something that is happening in accordance with school, like this is a university requirement. And if it's something, I think a good way to think of it is if it's something that's being required for the advancement of your studies, then that really is school related. And that's wonderful, but it doesn't really fulfill the additional requirement of community service hours. So I think I would need to know more, but it sounds like maybe it's a school related initiative, in which case we would like to see you doing essentially above that.
Thank you, Rachel. And Elizabeth, Mohammed wants to know, in a situation where the university transcript, especially for some universities that conduct their exams and the grades might not be out until September, how do you handle this situation?
Okay, so at least for Mohammed, he knows that by September the results will not be out. So please go to your finance officer right now, so that you get your letter of good standing of your head of department. So they already tell us that the results will not be out by this time, but this scholar is in good standing, his grades are okay, and that the results will be given to us later. So we're in June 18th. Because most of our schools are very slow in giving us some of these documents. Just start early and ask them to give you a letter of good standing. So as long as you have a letter of good standing, we won't have a problem explaining to us that the results are not yet out, but you are their student and you are in class. That is good enough for us. Yeah.
Thank you. And Eugenia would like to know how they should upload the receipts for expenses that are more than the wires sent.
Because I believe sometimes you may, because ours is not a full scholarship, ours is partial. So maybe you also have funds from elsewhere that you use to maximize on your expenses. So as long as it's beyond what we have sent you and you have your receipts that shows it's even over and above, we wouldn't have a problem. We only have a problem where it's way below, it's not adding up. But if it's even over and above, especially now you've given us your tuition receipt and then you've given us expenses that have even gone over, we may not require if it goes over, but sometimes the receipts are combined. So if it's over and above, that is okay. We will clear you. If it's below, that is a problem. We will not send the wire until we have the full accounting. Yeah.
Thank you. Back to you, Rachel. Mustafa is asking if research activities can be used as community service photos, and Mayul is asking if they are supposed to explain what is the photo, like put a caption in every photo they report on.
Oh, yeah. I think that'd be an awful lot of work for you all to do. My thought on that, and Elizabeth or Liz, let me know if you think this is kind of right. I have not had issues with that. I mean, like, generally what happens is you tell the story, the description of the activity, and then it's pretty intuitive, you know, what is happening. If you're telling a story of planting trees and then you have pictures of planting trees, generally, you know, we can put that together. Though I appreciate your asking, I would say that it would probably be more helpful if just in the description is as descriptive as possible. Sometimes it can be challenging. I recently had to track down through Googling, you know, information about a photo that we were going to use because I wasn't sure of many of the details of the photo, you know, where it was and what was the event and things like this. But it was a really good photo, so we wanted to use it. So I don't think it's necessary to describe each photo. That'd be very taxing for you, but just make sure the photos are telling a story that is shared clearly within the description. Elizabeth and Liz, do you agree? Okay, great.
Thank you so much. Elizabeth, to you. Anonymous attendee is asking, sometimes they don't pay rent maybe this semester because they normally pay rent annually, and they have this amount left over that they'll spend it in the next expense. The question is, how do I report that I have some balances left that will make up for the next semester's expenses on my expense tracker, since I am to account for everything?
So we've sent you funds in January. So you've paid your rent so you've paid your rent in January. So give us that receipt. Then July, the funds we send you, whatever you'll use the July funds for, or in September, sorry, the funds we send you in September, whatever you use the funds in September to pay for is what you'll give us the receipts for. Because I'm thinking you're getting the funds in January, then you're paying for the whole year, not a problem. Just report that for this reporting. And then the funds that we give you in September, whatever you will use for, you will just tell us. So that is okay. That is fine. Yeah.
So how do they document for the balance?
Also,
the question is how.
balance.
Yes. The amount paid was to pay for rent, but they've already cleared the rent bill, so they have excess amount. How do they report for that excess amount?
So you have a balance with you. Then put it in the tracker and tell us this amount. I'm still, because now it will balance out. You will tell us this amount is to be used for ABCD in the coming reporting. So that one will be able to let us know that in the next report, we expect you to account for even more, I guess. Now she'll have to report for the funds we send in September plus the balance for last time. So that one is possible because we are able to keep that track. We have your reports with us, so you can actually put that balance in this current one so that it balances off, but we will require that amount to be on the other side. We will put that note so that we keep that track. Yeah.
Okay, there's a good question for you here as well. So a scholar has attended an exchange program in another country. Should they include that as part of the personal expenses?
Okay, depending on if the funds, it's the WMI funds that were used. If you use the funds for that purpose, then in terms of, I think, transport, that would be under transport. Give us the receipt and then show us that this was for this and this expense, and then put it in the tracker. Yeah. And make sure the receipt is there. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, somebody says, this semester I was involved in NCDs. I think they mean non-communicable diseases screening in rural area. We were working in unfinished house under dim light, so the photos taken were not clear. Will they be rejected if I send them?
No, no, no. They won't be. We're not going to reject any photos. These are really just like ideal guidelines. You know, it is true that if if it's only possible to take photos of critical work that you're doing that are going to be dim or not going to meet sort of all of these guidelines, that's just how it is, you know, and it is possible to manipulate photos, to brighten them, all of these things. And so that is possible. It's just not ideal. So what I've shared here is what is considered ideal, but sometimes what's ideal is not possible. You know, somebody also shared in the comment thread, what if it's just not possible to have good lighting? Like, what if you cannot, you have to be in the sun over here? If it's not possible, it's not possible. But if it is possible, then we're requesting that you strive toward a best case scenario.
Okay, and a follow-up question here from Fiano is saying, in relation to community service, should a program from the Department of Facility be organized, which involves a donation or outreach in our community outside the facility? Will you consider it as community service?
What is the Department of Programs?
So let's say they're in the medical department and that specific faculty is organizing for our community for an event, let's say
Gotcha.
outside. Yeah, so should they document that as community service?
I think that and Elizabeth or Liz, tell me if you agree here, but I think that the way of thinking of this always with community service is this something that is a requirement for my schooling? If it's something that is a requirement for your schooling to advance, for your education to advance, to my mind, that is not what we're striving to. That's not what we're striving toward with the 100 hours. So I would have to know more about the nature of that. If it was something that you were doing of your own free will, you know, to participate in that way in your community, wonderful. I think that definitely could be considered community service. But again, if it's sort of an extension of your internship or an extension of some of the coursework that you are participating in, I think that in your mind can be considered kind of a separate thing. Elizabeth and Liz, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. Because now they're talking about they did some fundraising for it. So this sounds a bit like it's voluntary. So I think that one would be considered as community service. But I think you've said it very clearly. If it's mandatory, no. If it is something that you're actually volunteering, then that's
right.
Yes, yeah, that's what we're
Right.
looking for.
Good call.
Thank you. We are 6 minutes to the top of the hour, and there's a question for you, Elizabeth. Benjamin is asking, he's having bank issues with the current bank, and he's asking if there's a form to fill so that he can change his account number.
Yes, please. Please write to me on Scholars. I'll give you the link so that you can give us your new details for the new bank account.
And Emmanuel is asking that for the section where we need to upload receipts, we are usually given 10 spaces for receipts. If I have more than 10 receipts to present, how do I send them?
Okay, normally we do, you can combine, if they're PDFs, you can combine them so that you can put them in the same space. But if you would like us to add the spaces, not a problem. Liz is here, she'll add the spaces for the receipts, not a problem. We could still add if you feel you need some more spaces, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that is mostly it. Somebody is asking, how do I go about getting receipts if I buy from, of where I buy from does not give receipts. However, they do keep a written record per customer. They don't have official receipts where they are buying. I think this one you've already addressed it, Liz, but maybe they were not in the meeting when you came in. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so if you have a letter, if you have a receipt from the vendor, that's okay. If they're able to sign on it and give their name and their contact, that is fine. What we are talking about is that one who has nothing completely. They're telling us, I don't have receipts. Those are the ones that we need the letter of confirmation of expenses. If your vendor has kept a record of your receipts, they're able to sign on it, they can stamp on it or write their contact so that you can even get in touch with them, then that's fine. That is still okay. Yeah.
And Opeo is asking for clarity on how you define a year. Is it from January to December, August to July? How do you define a year in reporting?
Okay, actually, normally since we come in September, so possibly it would be better because what we do WMI year. So we come in the WMI year. So scholars come in September. So that would mean the September reporting and the January reporting make a year. So 2 reports make a year, depending on when you came in. So there are some scholars who actually come in late. So they come in January. And so January will be their first report. July will be their second report. That will be their year. Yeah, so it depends on when you came in. But for majority, coming in September. Just know 2 reportings, depending on when you came in, is what makes a full year. Yeah.
And Gadwell is asking, can my student ID be changed from the previous reference ID number that I gave to WMI previously? Because the ID I got during the admission is not the same with the one they gave me during the registration, due to the reason that the system was changed immediately when I enrolled and they issued this new ID.
Not a problem. Just write to me on Scholar so that we can update your records. That's fine.
Okay. Okay, the questions that keep coming in, most of them have been responded to, the repetitions. There's a question there, somebody asking, are you going to share this webinar on email so that they can refer to?
Liz.
Yes, definitely. We will share.
Okay, good. That's said and done. If you have any closing remarks, Elizabeth, Rachel, and Liz, I'll be happy to take your comments.
I think I can only request for 1 minute and I direct this to Elizabeth. Maybe you can speak on fellowship. Joining fellowship, doing activities within the fellowship, if that also can be recorded as a community service.
Yeah, good question. Nobody has asked. And fellowship actually is not mandatory. So yeah, fellowship activities are part of the community service. So please make sure you are active in your fellowship. We want to track with your leaders that you're actually being active in all fellowship activities, whether they be meetings, online meetings, in person, going out to the community, all that is counted as community service. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. To our scholars, this was a very insightful webinar. And thank you so much for your questions. It really means that you are really getting the gist of everything, and we are planning to advance or improve in your reporting. That said and done, this webinar will be shared to your respective emails. Please refer to this webinar whenever you have questions. Most of them have been addressed here. And if you have any questions, we have the scholars email address. You know about the email address. Please reach out to us through that email address. If you have any questions, whichever region you're coming from, we have regional coordinators, myself covering the East Africa region. We have Phoebe Musonda covering Southern and Central Africa, and then we have Isaac Yeboah covering West Africa, and then we have Maladib covering Asia and Oceania. So if you have any questions, kindly reach out to all the regional coordinators and we will link you up with the respective support that you need. With that said and done, thank you all for attending and have a good afternoon, evening, and morning, depending on where you're coming from. Bye, everyone.